So Chris, fantastic to meet you. Thanks so much for joining us at Procurement Supply Chain Live Sustainability. Tell us a bit about you and your journey in the sustainability space.
Yeah, so I've worked in the construction industry for just over 20 years now. I started from a commercial angle as a quantity surveyor, and I did that for about 15 years, but largely involved in large, complex programs, airports, highways, a lot of that kind of thing, before making a switch into sustainability about 5 years ago when I led the lowest carbon team on the Lower Thames crossing. I made the switch because it's something I'm passionate about, something I feel that in the built environment, with the contribution we make to global emissions, something we really need to improve upon, and something I can make a really big difference in.
So you just come out of your panel session. So just give us a rundown, for anyone who wasn't in there. What was it all about?
Yeah, so it was a bit outside my comfort zone. I'm used to sitting there and talking about sustainability, but this time I was talking about procurement. And the reason that I wanted to be on that stage and talk about procurement was because it's quite often overlooked in the construction industry. Goals and targets are set, and then they're not met because the client hasn't taken their supply chain on that journey. And the second reason is that's often where the biggest impact can be made. That's often where the biggest improvements to social value, to biodiversity, to reducing carbon can be made is through that supply chain.
Can you maybe just give us some of the, just a few concrete examples, if you'll pardon the pun, slight pun there, of how you are helping and kind of influencing clients in terms of, integrating sustainability into their operations?
Yeah, I mean, so I work very heavily with Mace in their sustainable procurement service offering, and it's a personal passion project of mine for the reasons we just spoke about, is where we can really make a big impact. So when we have a major client, let's say, for example, an airport, and they want to reduce their carbon massively, then going back to what you said, concrete, that steel, diesel are really big areas where we can make big reductions quite easily using tried and tested materials. But if we don't include that in the procurement process, if we don't bring the supply chain on that journey, then they will revert to doing things in the same way that they've been doing them for decades. And that's not to blame them. They're faced with a big challenge, a complex program to build in a short amount of time. Doing things differently brings risk. So if we don't drive that through the procurement process, through the supply chain, then we won't be able to realize those savings. And just to give you an example from one of our clients, we've achieved 40% embodied carbon reduction just by the introduction of alternative cementitious materials. So it is concrete. It's not rock and roll. It's the simple stuff, but doing it a bit differently and making sure that the supply chain are on board with that.
One of the things that sort of comes up a lot in the coverage we do is kind of balancing sustainability with the cost pressures. There might be long-term cost benefits, but initially it's sort of a hurdle that a lot of not all, but some companies are kind of reluctant to jump over. How can that initial balance be struck between cost pressures and sustainability?
Okay, so first of all, if you're going to have carbon targets, if you're going to have net zero targets, then the best value in achieving those is going to be through engaging with your supply chain early on from the start. So it might cost you more, but it's certainly going to cost you less than if you try and wedge those requirements in at a later date. Secondly, if you help your supply chain understand what you're going to be asking of them, and if you're going to even help them come up with solutions to achieve that, then you're not going to eliminate competition, and when the tenders come in, they're going to be competitive. And then finally, sustainability doesn't have to cost money. If you design efficiently, if you build less, you're going to save money and be more sustainable.
And just finally, sort of, we always like to kind of do a bit of a look ahead on sort of trends, in the supply chain sustainability intersection. Is there anything that's kind of on your radar that we might not be aware of, or where should look out for, in the coming couple of years in terms of how the kind of movement is progressing?
Certainly with Mace, we are becoming much more integrated. The sustainability team does not sit on its own. We integrate with the cost and commercial team in terms of procurement. We integrate with the project management team in terms of delivery on site. We integrate with the PMO team in terms of reporting. So I think you're going to find a much more unified approach within the industry, and people understanding that you can't do these things in silos, and you're not going to get value for money if you try to.